we're at the Old State House Museum. We're Arkansas's first state capitol building. It was constructed from 1833 to 1842. Took 9 years to build. We became a state in 1836, and even though construction was still going on around the building, we had our first convention meeting in the building. And as far as we know, nobody ever lived in our building, but that's our official statement about that. Unofficially, somebody could have lived in here. We don't know. There's no record of it.
He was my great-great-grandfather. He was brought up after the Civil War. When the war was over, there was some kind of a big meeting they had in Little Rock. He was very unpopular because the people all thought that he was a Yankee, and he wasn't. He was not a Yankee sympathizer even. I mean, he was for the South, being the South. So he had an uphill grind when he was appointed by Lincoln. He wasn't elected. He never would have been elected, I don't think, because they didn't like him. And actually, he had a very hard job trying to reorganize Arkansas after being in this war. He did what he thought was right for Arkansas and good for Arkansas.
Isaac Murphy's legacy is as the person, the sole individual who voted against secession in 1861, secession from the United States, at the point at which many other states had already seceded. Arkansas had called a secession convention, and in those sorts of conventions, delegates to the convention campaign, insofar as they did campaign, on the basis of how they would vote on the question. And he pledged, he was from northwest Arkansas, from Washington County, and he pledged to vote against secession. So at the first iteration of the convention, they voted to not decide. They voted to put it to a vote of the people, and that election was supposed to take place in August. However, before August came along, we had this little misadventure at Fort Sumter in April when Confederates fired on ships trying to come into Fort Sumter and reprovision the fort, which was a federal fort. And at that point, Arkansas secession convention reconvened and put it to a vote of the delegates, and they were going to have to decide then whether they voted, whether they wanted to secede or not. And of the delegates there, 5 of them initially voted no, the rest voted yes. And David Walker, the chair of the convention, implored them to be unanimous, because it was an important question, whether to secede or not. It's going to have all kinds of implications. So all of them except Murphy agreed to change their votes, their no votes, to yes, and he stuck with it. And he stuck with it for a couple of reasons. One thing, he had been elected as an anti-secession candidate, delegate, and so he stuck with his principles.
Well, obviously you've got a great divide in terms of which way the country's going to go. The argument over slavery, states' rights, and then you get into what are states like Arkansas going to do. Are you going to join the Union? You really can't stay out of it. So the debate as to either join the Union or move with the Confederacy. Isaac Murphy finds himself in a unique position in that I don't think there's any real way to pick a winner. You want to be on the winning side, but somebody's going to lose. But I think it speaks to his power of his convictions. It's something that he's willing to believe in and stand for. I don't know many people today that would stand that kind of abuse and that kind of pressure and still not change their choice. So I think it's one of those stories that you read about and you wish that you could be that brave to stand for something like that.
Historians have made different judgments of him. Thomas Staples, an early historian of the Civil War and Reconstruction, a member of the Dunning School of Historians who are very critical of Reconstruction, treats Murphy very harshly. Most historians, though, I think have come to credit Murphy for sticking by his convictions and being governor under the most difficult circumstances. He becomes governor in 1864, more than a year before the war ends. He's the loyal governor of Arkansas. There's also a Confederate governor at the same time. Theoretically, he's the governor, but his authority doesn't extend very far past Union Army lines. Where the Union Army is in Arkansas, that's the part of Arkansas Murphy has any authority over. You might sort of call it Arkanistan. It's a lot like modern-day Afghanistan, in which where the American Army is in the large towns, it and its local allies are in the control of the immediate vicinity, but the countryside is overrun by their enemies. So Murphy's authority during wartime doesn't go past the major towns where the Union Army is, and the Union Army doesn't do much to expand his authority or expand its own control of this chaotic, anarchic Arkansas.
So Isaac Murphy was trying during Reconstruction after the Civil War to get our state back together and be unified. And his quote was, "We have all done wrong." That was his stance. And we all did wrong. You know, slavery was wrong. The whole Civil War was wrong.
That's what we remember him for, is the fellow who stuck to his principles and voted the way he'd been elected to vote, and stuck with the Union.
I know many of us would rather have a good reputation than go through some of that. So he sacrificed a lot for what he believed in. And that should be an encouragement to all of us that even at the end, I mean, he ends up becoming governor of Arkansas. So the willingness to take a stand despite what's coming, I think is a message for all of us.
Well, I was walking down the road, minding my own, singing along to the radio. In a suit and tie, he came up to me. He said, "Hey boy, get a job, join the force of the working kind." Well, I said no, I think I'll keep my soul. Son American, to think for yourself, Son American, to want something else. Son American, but I don't care, 'cause I'm a radical and I speak my mind. Son American, to think for yourself, Son American, to want something else. Son American, but I don't care, 'cause I'm a radical